It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Well, hello everybody. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to the cleverly titled Phil Ferguson Show. This is show number 218, and a little later in the show, we're going to have a nice lengthy interview with David Silverman, president of American Atheists. So hang on, you're going to love that. If you're new to the show, well, first of all, thank you for joining us here at the Phil Ferguson Show. The show is about 1/3 finance, 2/3 atheism. And sometimes I go over emails that people sent in, and I did get one from somebody, and I'm going to paraphrase, and I'm not going to use their name. They were complaining basically that this seems like a shamelessly self-promotional podcast. And my first thought is, what do you think a podcast is? Do you know personally? I mean, there's professional podcasts like NPR and news, but if you have somebody or a group of somebodies putting together a show, there's inherently something wrong with that person or those people because they think they have something to say that you want to listen to. So I can never be accused of selling out and doing this for money because I started that way. The point of the show is twofold. One, to let you know that I have a business called Polaris Financial Planning. That's been wildly successful because of this podcast, so thank you very much. And two, promote a worldview of atheism. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not worried about that. And hopefully in a few weeks, I will have a nice story for the listeners about how I was actually discriminated against. And I don't know that I've ever had this happen to me before in my life. So it was a bit of a shock. And I have to say, even though it was a small little thing, it really pissed me off. And the feeling of impotent rage that I couldn't do anything about it, at least not in the short run. I'm working on the solution, which is why I'm not going to go over the details, kind of gave me an eye-opening experience into this idea of discrimination. I've always been sympathetic to people that are discriminated against, but now maybe I can sympathize more because it sucks. So anyway, don't want to spend too much time on that, but that's the show, in general. I was handed or sent a link by a listener about a guy who wrote a program, and I was thinking about playing a soundbite, but it gets a little monotonous, but it cracked me up, and it's on Boing Boing, the website, and it's called, "This Guy Wrote a Program to Call Spammers' Phone Lines 28 Times a Second." Well, he got one of those calls, and maybe you've gotten calls like this where someone calls and it says they're from the IRS and you owe money and they're about to send the police out to your door unless you pay. So there's a number that they give you to call, and he called that number. He wrote a script to call that number 28 times each second and jammed up their phone lines, and he recorded their reactions to when they answered, and he'd have this message that, it says that you are a scammer, you are cheating people, blah, 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 blah. Really fun stuff. If you're looking for something different, go check that again. It's on Boing Boing, and I think if you just Google, "This Guy Wrote a Program to Call Spammers' Phone Lines 28 Times a Second," or something like that, you'll get it. It's good fun. I really enjoyed that. Other things that we have going on, I got another email. I'm trying to stall here. Someone asked, do you suggest that all of the retirement savings not in the cushion be invested in stock index mutual funds? That's really easy. Yes, I do. Stocks are the long run winners. They're the ones that make 10%. One of the reasons I talk so negatively about things like gold or other natural resources and even real estate to a point, all of that tends to bring in returns equal to inflation in the long run, maybe a little bit above. Stocks, investments in companies, they are the only thing that create genuine improvement in value. They bring in resources which can be gold, which can be land, which can be human labor, and the output is greater than all of the sources coming together. They create value, and that's how you get your portfolio to increase in the long run. The reason we have a cushion at all is because if you're close to retirement, 10 to 12 years out, or in retirement, not every day of your life is in the long run. You might need money in the short run. That's the purpose of the cushion. So we've talked about that in detail in other shows, so I'm not going to do that here. But another email kind of inspired me to cover some more stuff about basic investing. Had an email from somebody, and I'll paraphrase here. Phil, I love the show. Of course, I always like to hear that. Phil, I love the show, but you've basically accomplished the mission of scaring the ever-living shit out of me. I don't know what to invest in. So you've scared me. That's great. But now what do I do? It doesn't seem like you talk about how to get started very much. And I thought, well, maybe I don't. And it's one of those things that there's so much for me to cover that I don't want to talk about how to get started on a regular basis. But it's reasonable for me to do this from time to time. And apparently it's been a while. So a couple things in Phil's world, I call it how to money. And there's three parts of how to money. One is savings, or really more importantly, spending less than you make. Two is investing. And that's where the bulk of the show is. And number two is how to invest. And three, of course, is time. If you start saving at the age of 60 and you want to retire at 65, you have a serious problem. The younger you start, the better. The more money you start with, the better. You know, those things are commonsensical. But how does one get started? And so one of the things, if you've not really saved any money, if you haven't figured out how to save any money, and this is not an area that I claim to be an expert, you need to figure out how to cut your costs. And yes, people always tell me, Phil, it's a lot easier to save money when you're making 80 or 150 than it is when you're making 30. No doubt about it. But you still need to save money. If you're not really locked in or fully accepting that principle, I recommend that you read the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. And one of the points of that book is you can often find people that make very little, a medium amount, or even a lot of money that haven't saved. The ability to save is not necessarily tied to the amount of income that you make. I will accept that it's harder if you don't make a lot. I'm not saying that's not the case. I've been there. But you've got to find a way, whether that means you shop at Aldi or you don't ever eat out. I mean, if you want a pizza, you can get a $2 or $3 pizza from the grocery store. You might even be able to make your own pizza. There's ways to cut money and live more affordable. You have to focus on those. There's websites, I'm sure, on the internet. My wife said that one she liked over the years is called Fly Lady. Unfortunately, she's kind of religious, but she said it helped her, and maybe it helps you. But seek out those ways to economize. Seek out those ways to save money. Anything from growing your own vegetables so that you actually have vegetables that you don't have to pay for, to not eating out, making sure you don't lease a car. If you buy a replacement car, and I specifically chose not to say new car, you buy a replacement car, seek out what cars are the most efficient in the long run. What, not necessarily the highest miles per gallon, but the most efficient as far as the amount of money you're going to spend. And maybe you don't have all the nice things that you want, but if you want to start saving money, you got to start somewhere, and you can either spend less or you can make more. I have had people that have called me for advice, and when they talk about their bills and their current situation with their car and their house, and they have a lot of fixed expenses that they can't reduce dramatically in the short run, often the option, and I'm going to sound like Dave Ramsey here, and I don't know that I want to do that too often, but you might need to get a second job. It's not what you thought, when you got to be 25 or 30 or 40 or 60, that you were going to have to get a second job. But maybe that's the best thing for you. If you are making 40 in your day job and you're living on 40 and you can't save any money, if you can work part-time nights and weekends and make 10, wow, that's a big difference. If you could save the bulk or all that 10, you're now saving the 20% that I recommend. And just for clarity, in case you're new, 10% I call the suck-ass minimum. You want to try to save 20. Now, the question is, okay, so I've got some money finally, and where do I go? I don't have a lot. So if you can muster up $1,000, you start to get a lot of options. And I would suggest that you go to some big brokerage firm. My favorite is Vanguard, a brokerage firm or a mutual fund company. And you open up an account. And you can do this at Fidelity. You can do it at Schwab, T. Rowe Price, other places. My favorite is Vanguard. And no, sadly, they don't pay me anything to keep saying that. But you can go online and open an account at Vanguard. And if you have $1,000 or more, you can buy their target date retirement funds. If you are younger, get something like the 2055. Maybe you're a little older, you want 2045 or 2050. But try to keep it pretty long unless you're really close to retirement. And if you're really close to retirement and you've now just managed to come up with your first $1,000, well, you're going to have some serious problems because you don't have the time. That's the third part of How to Money. Regular listeners know that I don't love target date retirement funds, particularly in retirement. But if you only have $1,000 or $2,000 or $2,500, you have very limited choices. If especially you're in your 20s or 30s or even 40s and you're just getting started, it's not an awful place to start. It's just not optimal. Of course, having only $1,000 to save is not optimal, but here you are. So you have $1,000 or $2,000. Open an account at Vanguard, put it in the Vanguard Target Date Retirement 2055 or something like that. The ones that are different years are going to be very similar, and I've done segments on it, and I'll probably do segments on it in the future. Of course, you can look up on Vanguard what these funds do. Once you get to $3,000, you can then put money into the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index. And the symbol for that, or the 5 letters for that, is VTSMX. Now, the reason I like that fund is with as little as $3,000, you are investing in virtually every single traded stock in the United States of America. That's a fantastic amount of diversification for only $3,000. It's all stock. It's all meant for the long run. This is not cushion stuff. But $3,000, hopefully, theoretically, you can continue to make, like the market has done in the long run, 10% a year. Once you get to $10,000, you can switch to the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Admiral shares. The Admiral shares have a slightly lower expense ratio, but they do require $10,000 to get in. The symbol for that is VTSAX. Now, if you're in a taxable account, you don't need to switch, because if the market's gone up and it took you a couple years to get to $10,000, you may not want to pay the taxes. Stay with the fund that's slightly higher expense ratio and avoid the taxes. If you put the money in an IRA or a Roth IRA, just go ahead and switch it. It's no big deal. And then you keep adding money to that. And of course, the sooner you add, the better. The more you add, the better. But it does take time. Investing is a long-term thing. And I often tell people, there was a famous poet that said something along the lines, at least I paraphrase, when investing in the stock market, there is no try. There is only do. You don't try the stock market. People that try the stock market often want to try it after it's had a couple years of phenomenally great success. And they put their money in, then they lose money, and they take their money out. So they bought high, and they sold low. That's not how it works. You want to buy low and sell high. It also is not how it works. It's a long-term process. If you need the money back in 1, 3, maybe even 5 or 7 years, for whatever reason, to pay for a wedding, to put a deposit on a house, pay a down payment on a car, the stock market is likely not the place for you. That money should be in something relatively safe, relatively conservative, and unfortunately, that means you're going to make next to nothing. But if you only make 2% a year, if the market happens to go down during the 3 or 4 years that you need the money, making next to nothing positive is way better than losing a lot. Stock market is for long-term investing, 10 years or longer. If you have a goal shorter than that, that's where you build something like the cushion. Once you get to $50,000, I'm going to make this suggestion, keeping in mind that this show is not specific investment advice for you. I don't know you. Some of you I do, but the average listener has never called me, never emailed me, and that's fine. It's part of the reason I do this show is to help people out. Consider a portfolio something along the lines of what I'm going to suggest. I have only 4 index funds, and I'm going to give them to you. So if you have $20, $40, $50,000 or anything below 50, just put it in the total stock market index. Keep your life incredibly simple. Could more mutual funds make your life a little bit better? Could you manage to get a little bit better return? Sure you could. But with $20,000, that little teeny bit of extra money that you're going to make is not going to be worth your time and effort to make it. I don't think. Plus, you have to know what you're doing. You have to do it at the right times. You have to make adjustments at least once a year or every other year. Relax. Your goal is to save a lot more money. Once you get to 50 and up to at least 250, this is a really simplified version, and it's not necessarily what I would do with somebody that had 200,000, for example, but it's what I give to you because it's simple and it's easy, and you're going to get the bulk of the benefit without hiring any advisor, including me. You're not going to get all of the benefit the advisor might give you as far as knowing where to be and when. And it's one of these things my wife and I debate. I constantly say I'm not a market timer. I will make market-based adjustments because sometimes things change over time. As an example, in 2006, 2007, 2008, U.S. government high-quality long-term bonds were fantastic, paying dividends of 7 or 8%, and interest rates were not all-time highs, but were pretty high. If they go down, you could make a lot more. It was a nice piece of your portfolio. But today, with long-term bonds paying 3.5% to 4%, virtually no room to go down in interest rates. But if interest rates go up, those funds could lose a lot of money. I don't use those. So you do have to pay attention to the world around you and understand some things, or you could hire someone that does that. And when you do, I get the emails all the time because people listen to the show. Thank you for that. Find someone like me who is a fiduciary who says, yes, I will take the responsibility and commit to doing what I think is in your best interest. I can still be wrong. So can they. So here's the 4 funds once you get over $50,000. You want to put about half of the money into the Vanguard S&P 500 Index Fund. The symbol for that, the 5 letters that you can look it up and research it or find it at Vanguard, VFIAX. So that will give you half your money will be in the large companies in the United States, 500 of them. Wonderful diversity. And then we're going to take 25% and put it in the extended market, the Vanguard extended market. Generally, when a fund says it's extended market, it means it's everything in the United States except the 500 largest stocks. And that is VEXAX. Those 2 positions, the S&P 500 and the extended market, will give you something close to owning virtually every stock in the United States of America, just like the total stock market index. And then put about 15%. If you want to go to 20% and tweak some of these other numbers, you could put that in international. For a long time in the past, I was at 20, 30% or more in international. And after 2008, when the U.S. market went down and what I thought an overreaction, fingers crossed I had back then that it was an overreaction, I dramatically reduced international to 5 to 10%. I'm now normally 12, 15, maybe even 20%, especially if you're younger. International has significantly underperformed in the last decade. Will it do better? Don't know. I kind of think there's a chance. So you can put a little extra in here compared to what I used to do. 15% is a nice number. 20% is also a nice number. Even if you get into the low 20s, it's not going to bother me. You could take, it may give you a little bit more volatility or ups and downs in your portfolio. But I think for right now, in 2017, it's not going to hurt you at all. Just a FYI, I think Vanguard itself recommends 30 up to 40% in international. So we'll find out. I mean, if international crushes the U.S. in the next year or 2 or 3, that means Vanguard made a better guess than I did. And sometimes that's going to happen. But 15%, give or take, in international, The symbol for that is VGTSX. And then the fourth one that we're going to have is the Vanguard REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust Index. And just another caveat, regular listeners will know I often talk about problems with REITs. There's private placement REITs. You should never buy one. You can buy individual securities, like you can buy an individual stock or an individual bond that is in real estate. I don't think you should buy that. But this index fund that specializes in that area, they're experts at knowing what to buy. No problem. You're diversified 10% of your portfolio in the Vanguard REIT index, and that's VGSIX. So all of these funds you can get, and if you get larger amounts, you could switch to the Admiral shares if these aren't the Admiral shares, for example. And it's a nice way to have some diversification. Now, what should you do with these four funds? For the most part, absolutely nothing. Add money. The single biggest factor in how much you're going to have in the long run is how much money you add. The second thing is going to be investment class, meaning stocks versus bonds, in a very general sense. So you want more stocks than bonds for the long run. The third thing is expense ratio. These have incredibly low expense ratios. That's good. Then, of course, is tax consequences. You want to make sure your tax consequences are small. If you can, put as much of this money into IRAs or Roth IRAs. And I have in the past done shows on that, and I'm sure in the future we'll do those again. But if there's something you think I should talk about that you're not sure about in the investment world, let me know. We can go over that. And you keep adding money to these four funds, and maybe once a year you take a look at it. And if you had 10% in real estate, and at the end of the year you have 12% in real estate, whatever. Don't sweat it. The easiest way to rebalance is when you add new money. So hopefully you've gotten to the point where you're regularly saving some money. So you add the money to the segment that has underperformed. I know that sounds counterintuitive. It's generally called a contrarian investment philosophy. So let's say international continues to do poorly, and it's no longer 15% as you started with. It's 11%. Add your money there. Try to push it back up to 15%. And this can get harder to do as your portfolio grows because the amount of money you're putting in, unless you add more and more money every year, can become a smaller number in relationship to the amount you've saved. So you might have to make adjustments. Now the big question is, when do you want to sell something and buy something? And I know for a fact it's not very often. I know it's not daily. I know it's not weekly or monthly or even quarterly. A year might be a good idea. Even a year or 2 or 3 is not going to bother me. And then, of course, it also depends on how far out of line these get. If, for example, real estate just cranks it for 2 years and it grows from 10% to 18% of your portfolio, time to sell some of your REIT money and rebalance it somewhere else. So that's the kind of thing to do, and maybe I'll do a segment, what to do when you have a larger account, but I'm already past the 20 minutes I wanted to spend on this. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk with David Silverman.
As a scientist, do you believe in God?
So in the West, there's 2/3 of scientists pray to a personal God on the expectation it will intervene in their day's affairs. But I can tell you this, productive scientists do not bring their Bible, their scripture, their holy books into the lab because they do not mix there. So they draw a line in the sand and they do one in one place, then they worship on the weekend, Saturday or Sunday, whatever is your religious tradition, there. So to ask whether they can coexist, the answer is empirically yes.
I didn't ask that. I asked, do you believe in God?
Every description of God that I've heard holds God to be all-powerful, very typical, and all good. And then I look around and I see a tsunami that killed 250,000 people in Indonesia, an earthquake that killed 250,000 people in Haiti, and I see earthquakes and tornadoes and disease, childhood leukemia, and I see all of this and I say, I do not see evidence of both of those being true simultaneously. If there is a God, the God is either not all-powerful or not all good. Can't be both.
Good answer. It's my question of the year.
So I'm. If you have good evidence, I'm good for it. But I'm evidence-driven.
You need evidence.
More
You're a
than
scientist,
I'm faith-driven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know.
And by the way, to be faith-driven is one thing, but to be faith-driven and try to create legislation on that affects other people who don't share your faith,
right.
That's the beginnings of a theocracy. And we have evidence of what that is in the past. And our founding fathers specifically founded this country to prevent that from happening.
All right, everybody, welcome back. With me today, I have the president of American Atheists, David Silverman. How are you, sir?
I am doing great, and thank you so much for having me back on the show, Phil.
Oh, it is always my pleasure to visit with you, whether it's in person or on the phone, so I'm delighted to have you join us.
Thank you so much. Let's have some good talk.
Yeah, well, the first thing I think I want to cover is that you have a book, of course. We've talked about it in the past. It's coming out in paperback?
It is. It's coming out in paperback, and it's a little early to talk about that, but yes, it is coming out in paperback in August, and it's very exciting. And there's a very exciting piece of the fact that Fighting God is coming out in paperback. So Fighting God is an atheist manifesto, and it's the first atheist book of its kind to be published by a major publisher in American history, okay? My publisher is Macmillan St. Martin's. They're the guys who own the Flatiron Building in New York. It's one of the largest publishers in the world, and Fighting God is the first book to be published by a major publisher in American history like that. So that was a big chance that Macmillan took, okay? Because it's, like I said, when you take the first, it's a big chance.
Right.
The fact that paperback is happening, paperback happens when when hardcover sales do well and ebooks do well. That's when paperback happens. If those two things didn't happen, if it wasn't good, paperback wouldn't happen. There wouldn't be a paperback version. And this decision is completely on them. I don't have any input on it at all. And so the fact that Fighting God is coming out in paperback in August tells the other publishers that the St. Martin's risk paid off.
Right.
That the book is selling well enough, which it is, to warrant a paperback, another edition, a second edition. And I did put some added bonus material in the paperback because between the two, Trump was elected. So I wrote an epilogue for the paperback that's going to be only in the paperback. It's not in the audiobook or the hardcover, to talk about how Fighting God relates to the Trump-Pence administration. And that's nice, but the point that I wanted to make is that the signal has been sent. You know, the trail has been blazed. We've penetrated a new place. Not only have we gone through and gotten into the major publishers, but we've been overtly successful with the major publishers. The major publisher has said we have made enough money and done enough, made enough money and enough profit with the hardcover that we're going to do it again in a paperback, and that's exciting in and of itself. That shows you how much this is doing well. And Fighting God's doing well, and I'm really, really happy with the response that it's received. And the fact that it's coming out in paperback in August is going to be really it's good for my ego, but it's also good for the movement.
Oh, yeah. It's always good to be liked and wanted. That doesn't hurt.
It really is.
And, of course, the book will come out just in time, right? Just coincidentally for the convention. And we've talked about it before, but it's getting close. Why don't you share with the listeners when it is and what's going on?
Phil, I'm really excited about this convention. And as you know, American Atheists makes the largest and most fun atheist conventions in the country. And this year is going to be no exception. We do what we can to make our conventions different. It's not just the same speakers giving the same talks that you've heard at other conventions. We are bringing in different people. So let's talk a little bit about the different people that are coming. Let's talk about people that you have seen. James Randi is our keynote speaker. We've also got Matt Dillahunty, Tony Pinn, Aaron Ross, Seth Andrews. Good people that we can depend on. Mandisa Thomas will be there. Marsha Botzer from the Equal Rights Campaign will be there, or from the LGBTQ society community will be there. Mark Gura from Atheist Alliance of America will be there. Good people that you've heard of, and my favorite, Yvette Daltremont. I shouldn't be picking favorites, but she's my favorite.
She was just on the show here a couple of weeks ago.
She's awesome. I got lots of love for her. And that's great. So that's our basis of, okay, we're going to have high-end, really good atheist speakers. Now let's talk about everybody else. Alan Cooperman, a name nobody's ever heard of. He's the director of religion research at Pew. He is going to talk about the rise of atheists from his perspective. And I don't know if you know this, Phil, but Pew just came out with a statement that said, hey, you know what? Here's the big news. 26% of Americans are atheists. And everybody said, wow, I wish somebody had told us that before.
That's funny that you're baiting my audience, because next week, listeners, come back, please. Next week, I have actually the published report that he's referring to, and I'm hoping to get one of the authors of that research to come on the show and talk about it. But if not, I've already read the entire thing and I've made notes, and we're going to go over how that was magically done. Very, very clever research. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to read it, but
I have, yeah.
26%, and that, just a shortcut for the listeners, it says that it's like 99% likely that it's between something like 13 and 39. 26 being the most likely number. So it is not the 3 to 11 we normally think of.
And if only somebody had written a book that said that before that actually stuck his neck out and said, hey, you know what? I'm thinking 26 to 27% of the country is atheists today. If only somebody had said that in a book called Fighting God, which is coming out in paperback in August, but it's already out there. I just tell you, you know, I like to stroke my own ego sometimes. I called this first. And I'm just going to say it. Yes. I crunched my own numbers for Fighting God, and I came up with 27%. And the fact that Pew came out and said 26, it's very validating for me. So Alan Cooperman is coming, and I'm glad that he's coming to talk about that. We're also going to have Senator Anne Brasseel, who is a member of the Flemish Parliament, will be logging on and giving a speech via Skype. She is a member. She is the chair of the Out of the Blue network, which is an LGBTQ network for her party in the Flemish Parliament. We are going to have Annie Pearl Avery. Annie Pearl Avery is a civil rights activist from the 60s who was one of the only people arrested at Selma. And she's an atheist, and she's coming to speak. We are also having Dr. Cyan Proctor. Dr. Proctor is a finalist for the NASA astronaut program. She spent a lot of time in the NASA Mars simulation, and she will be there to narrate the star of the show, which is a total eclipse of the sun.
Right.
We're going to have an atheist convention with a total eclipse of the sun. And we're going to have a NASA astronomer there to narrate the thing. This is going to be something that people will remember. And we're going to have glasses there so everybody can stare at the sun without getting hurt. And it's going to be something that, I mean, I'm really looking forward to it, because watching a total eclipse of the sun has been on my bucket list since I was a kid. And we are having the convention. It's going to be right in the center of the path of totality. So it's going to be something we can watch, and we're going to have an astronomer there along with James Randi to talk about it. And that's going to be a lot of fun. It's something that I'm really looking forward to.
What, David, before you move on to more of these awesome speakers,
yeah,
my wife and I are going to be there, and we're driving from Chicago. We're going to drive because that way, if, dare I say, God forbid, there's bad weather, we're going to drive halfway. We could drive halfway back or more to make sure that we get to see the solar eclipse. So,
okay.
I'm wishing for clear skies because everyone should see this. And it's like you said, it's something. My original degree when I went to college was going to be astronomy, and I have not been in a total solar eclipse. So I will do whatever I can to try to make that happen. Of course, it's nice. I don't know how you guys managed to get solar eclipse on the same day as your convention, but well done, sir.
Thank you so much. It was very hard to deal with. And by the way, yeah, we do have a contingency plan. If it's cloudy, we're going to bring in TVs, and we're going to log on and see the total eclipse as they stream it from weather balloons.
Oh, very nice.
So we are going to have a total eclipse of the sun at the event, even if it's cloudy. And Dr. Proctor is going to be there. She is awesome. You could Google her, Dr. Cyan Proctor. And she is really an incredible woman and an incredible science teacher.
And, of course, everyone listening can always read more about this at the American Atheist page, atheist.org.
Yeah, atheists.org is the center of the world for me.
Yeah.
So we're also I mean, I'm not done talking about new and different people, okay? There was, of course, you're aware of the Creation Museum.
I am aware.
Well, there's a book called Writing America at the Creation Museum, and these two people from I believe are from Johns Hopkins, went there and dissected the Creation Museum from an atheistic perspective and published a book, and they will be coming to speak about it as well. Zarin Firoz is a Bangladeshi blogger who is now trying to not be deported so that she can not go home to be murdered because she's got death threats against her, and she's got a fantastic story. And speaking of fantastic stories, have you heard about that Netflix movie?
What is? I guess not. What is that?
The Netflix movie, The Most Hated Woman in America.
Yeah. I thought maybe there's something brand new this week or something. Yes, I know of that movie.
Yeah, that movie came out, and there's a whole bunch of controversy around it because there's a whole bunch of allegations about how Madeline had a second set of books and how and what she said. And so, not only are we showing that Netflix movie at our convention, we are having the writer and director come. And he's going to talk about all the things in the movie that are fake.
That seems bold on their part.
Yeah. And he has already put down in writing what he's going to talk about, including that whole thing about the second set of books, completely fake. And you're going to, and I want to say this really, really clearly. I have no problem as president of American Atheists. If Madeline had done something wrong, I have no issue saying she'd done something wrong.
Right. She's not a god. She's a human. She makes mistakes.
And she might have been a bad person. I mean, if she were a bad person, that doesn't negate what the good that American Atheists is doing today.
Right.
So I would have no problem saying that she did something wrong, but she didn't do anything wrong. There's absolutely no evidence that she did any illegalities. There's no, and we're open. We were audited by the IRS every year back then. There was no financial impropriety, but the movie clearly implies that there was. And so at the American Atheist Convention, we're going to show the movie with the director and writer there, who is going to say what parts he made up and why.
Now, is his talk going to be videoed and put on YouTube so people can reference it and link it and share it?
Yes. Everything's going to be on YouTube. We have to get permission from that. We can't show the movie on YouTube.
I understand.
But his presentation, his remarks are going to be on YouTube so that people can see how much of that story was false. I mean, that story could have been really good. In the end, it came out to be like kind of okay movie. It highlighted our struggle, but it made Madeline look bad. And she didn't deserve to be looked bad. Madeline was a hero. And so and it's one thing for the president of American Atheists to say that. It's another thing for the writer and director of the movie that panned her to come up on stage and say, actually, we made all that stuff up.
Now the big question is why, and are they going to fix it?
They're not going to fix it.
Yeah,
no. They're not going to fix it.
Crap.
But the why is the money. The why is the time. The why is creative license. The why is that the movie was not a biopic. It was a dramatization that looked like a biopic.
All right. Well, you got any other people? Because we've got a lot to cover, and I know you have limited time.
Yeah. That's everybody I wanted to cover. I just hope everybody comes to this convention. The other things that I wanted to mention. Yes, there's one more thing I want to mention, okay? And that is the fun stuff, comedy, okay? There's Ian Harris is going to be our MC. He's a very funny guy.
Yep, I know Ian.
You've seen him on Comedy Central and The Tonight Show. He's also going to be doing a set at night, a comedy set at night, and then we are having an encore performance. Frank Conniff and Trace Below from Mystery Science Theater 3000 will be coming back to the American Atheist Convention, and they will be riffing God's Not Dead 2 live on stage.
I have avoided that movie intentionally, but I look forward to seeing it, so that is fantastic.
I love it. They did God's Not Dead 1 in Memphis, and I laughed my ass off. My ass no longer exists because I laughed it off in Memphis because Frank and Trace riffed God's Not Dead, and now they're coming back for God's Not Dead 2, and that is the thing. Because you know what the thing is, Phil? Like I said, we want you to remember these conventions. These conventions, a lot of conventions, they look the same. Our conventions look different. Our conventions are the ones that you're going to remember by design. And so we're bringing in some really, really powerful stuff to give everybody not only some good food for thought, but also lots of opportunity for bonding and fun and booze and happiness and laughter. And something that I want people to leave the convention with their faces too sore from smiling too much.
One thing I do give great compliments to, and I know it's not just you, but you and other people on the staff, the American Atheist Conference, of all the conferences in the movement, secularism, skepticism, humanism, is by far the most diverse.
Oh, yeah.
And I appreciate that, and it's taken some time, I know, but the progress is there. It's tangible. It's not just this couple of speakers, but it's the audience and how everyone's made to feel welcome. So kudos to you on that.
And thank you so much for that nod. It's something that we spend a lot of effort in to make sure that everybody is represented from all different walks of life, and we are an extremely proud to be very not just tolerant, but very, very diverse. Our conventions have gender-neutral bathrooms. We were the first to have gender-neutral bathrooms.
Yeah, I think that was that Utah?
Yeah.
That was great fun in Utah.
Yeah, it was Utah. And you know, the diversity is not tokenism. We have the stars of we have diverse stars coming in. Like Annie Pearl Avery. Holy crap!
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just so thrilled to have her. So we have stars from the diverse movement,
sure.
And that's one of the things that I love the most.
Let me transition for a minute. Something completely different. Walgreens and birth control. Talk to me about that.
About what?
Walgreens, the pharmacy, and birth control, and pharmacists not giving out prescriptions. What the hell is this all about?
This is about pharmacists' right. This is about the RFRA. Okay, this is about pharmacists' rights to not give you prescriptions if they don't like it, if it's an abortion, RU486 or anything that they don't like. And this is about so this is a longer story, but this is about the RFRA. This is about the Religious Freedom Restoration Act that gave religious rights equal footing or a higher footing than civil law. Now, as you know, Phil, and as I wrote in the book, as I wrote in Fighting God, all religion is cafeteria religion. Everybody makes up a God that agrees with them.
Yeah. Or they change.
Everybody invents a God that agrees with them. So to all of your listeners and everybody on the planet who is not mentally ill, if you believe in a God, you believe in a God that agrees with you. If you're pro-choice, your God is pro-choice. If you're pro-life, your God is pro-life. Death with dignity, gay marriage, all that stuff, your God agrees with you on all moral issues because you invent your gods. And that means that when you say things like, oh, well, my closely held religious views usurp something, what are closely held religious views? Closely held religious views are nothing more than personal opinion that you have created a God that agrees with you in, so you're trying to protect your personal opinion with your God.
Well, while you're in this mode, which I love, let me just really poke the hornet's nest.
Yeah.
What do you think when someone says, you have to respect my beliefs?
No, I don't. I absolutely, and I will say that right to their face. No, I don't. You can believe in a man in the sky. You can believe in Santa Claus. I respect your right as an American citizen to believe what you want, but I do not respect that belief. It's asinine. You believe in a man in the sky in 2017? You believe in Santa Claus? For real? You believe in Superman? Oh, wait a minute. Your God has absolutely no proof above the gods that you don't believe. Let's have a Socratic discussion about why your belief is more reasonable than anybody else's religious belief. When somebody says you have to respect my belief, the answer is no, I absolutely do not, and you don't have to respect mine.
Yeah,
we only have to respect each other's rights.
I was on a friend's.
No, I don't respect your belief.
I was on a friend's wall, and the person threw that out, and they said, "Well, Phil, I respect your beliefs. You have to respect mine." And I came back flaming, and I said, "No, I don't. I respect your right to a belief, and I can even respect you as a human, and I think that's a really good plan. But if you believe something that's stupid, I reserve the right to not give you any credit, not give you any respect, because that's a bad idea."
And it's important, Phil. This is such an important thing because that is a good deed. Okay? So many people think, oh, well, saying you respect their religion, that's a good deed. That's a nice thing to do. The answer is no, that's an unethical thing to do. It's a cowardly thing to do, and it's an anti-humanistic thing to do. Because if they walk away from that discussion thinking that atheist respects my religious belief, you have cemented that religious belief in that person's head. You've legitimized it. That's not a nice thing to do. Religion is a con and a scam, and it hurts every victim. Every believer is a victim. And if you say, I respect your belief, you're helping them stay a victim. You should do the right thing. You should do the moral thing. Yeah, it's the more difficult thing. Yeah, it's not the easiest thing. Yeah, you might get a dirty look, but it is a moral and ethical and good thing to do, to tell the truth. And say, no, I don't respect your belief. You believe in something that's not worthy of respect.
And of course,
that's something they don't want to hear, but they need to hear it. And saying it is the good thing to do.
You know, we're talking about it's nice to be wanted. It's also nice to have someone on the show that so closely agrees because I have said the same thing, that I have a moral, nay, an ethical obligation to tell someone that they're wildly wrong and that what they believe is harmful.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
I'm doing it for their best interest.
Unhappy when, and I'm not going to pick on, I'm just going to pick on humanists now because it happens a lot there, but not all humanists are like this, obviously. But certain humanists puff up their chests and they say, I'm being bad. And they're being good when they say, oh, I have your truth, you have my truth, let's hug it out.
No.
They don't understand that that is cowardly and harmful and not humanistic. Exactly the opposite of humanistic. This is why I say calling yourself an atheist is more humanistic than calling yourself a humanist, because that negates the bigotry against us, and challenging people on their religion, just like you said, is a good deed. It's something that people need to hear. And if you go to people in our community who used to be religious, who have come out, they will agree with you and me, Phil, They will say, yeah, it really would have helped me if somebody would have called me on my shit earlier and made me think about it, planted some seeds, and not legitimized it in my own eyes. It's a harmful, terrible thing to do to somebody, to say, my truth is my truth and your truth is your truth and your religion is completely relevant and reasonable. I respect your religious belief. That's a terrible thing to do to another person.
And the single biggest cause of the difference, the variance between the new data saying 26 or maybe 27% of the population is atheistic versus the 3 to 11 that we get in surveys, is that stigma, is that fear that you might be considered a bad person. Even in a telephone survey, people are afraid to admit it. And like you've said a million times, and I've said it too, you've got to come out, you've got to do things. Let me circle back around to Walgreens because that's good fun,
okay,
too.
Walgreens. So we're talking about religious privilege, right?
Right.
So the RFRA creates – you invent your own God. Everybody agrees at a God that agrees with them. And so now you have people saying, well, I'm a bigot against gay people, but my God agrees with me, which I invented. Therefore, it's my religious views that are anti-gay. I don't like black people. I don't like Jews. I don't like Muslims. But my God tells me so. And so I'm legitimate. And so now you've got a pharmacist. And you've got a pharmacist who doesn't like abortion. And lo and behold, he's got a God that agrees with him. So he's got a religious right now. And the RFRA says that these people now have the right to – that right is equal or greater than the actual civil rights, the constitutional rights of people. And so the RFRA says if there's a law, you can break that law if it's against your religion in some cases. And this is exactly what's happening with the with this pharmacist. We've got these people who have the constitutional right to go to the doctor and to not be discriminated against, to not have somebody else come in and dictate. So you can you've got people who want to buy a cake and they have the right not to be discriminated against, but the people who sell the cake have religious objections, and that usurps constitutional rights. And we've got Walgreens who says, oh, we're going to translate that and say anybody who else has religious rights, that's going to usurp other people's rights. And we're going to let a pharmacist. Now, I'm not dissing pharmacists, but guess what pharmacists aren't? They're not doctors, and they're not patients. They're pill distributors. They're medicine distributors. That's what they are. Yes, they have education, and they know about the pills that they distribute, but that's what they're doing. So if you go to a doctor and the doctor gives you a pill, now Walgreens has a policy apparently that their pharmacists can say, no, I believe in a God that says you shouldn't have this medicine.
Now, from what I read from the actual policy and Walgreens' response to this case, they will allow somebody to not fill it, provided someone else is available to fill it, which I don't know if I even like that, but okay, no harm done. But as soon as someone is told you have to leave and go to another pharmacy, definitely completely unacceptable.
Yeah, it's all completely unacceptable. The fact that you believe in a God that doesn't want you to do your job doesn't negate your responsibility to do your job. Pharmacists have a responsibility to the public. Walgreens has a responsibility to the public to not discriminate, to not get in the way of other people's enjoyment of life. And I can't, we're in a situation now where President Trump is pushing so many religious favors onto the religious right. And we're going to see this more and more. And we have to rely on capitalism. We have to rely on people saying, I'm not going to shop at Walgreens if they allow this kind of crap. And I'm not going to. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. And I'm going to make sure that they know that I'm going to go to a pharmacy that doesn't allow the pharmacist to give me shit. Can I swear on your?
You may swear all you want.
To give me shit. I don't care what I'm going to a pharmacist for. It's none of their goddamn business what my pills are.
That's right. Hand it over.
Give me my pills. Here's my prescription card. Verify it. Here's my money. Take my money. Give me the pills that my doctor has prescribed to me. If you don't like it, leave your job.
That's right. If you can't do your job, do something else. That's fine.
Yes.
If you don't, if you don't want to distribute birth control pills or something like that, don't find another job.
Go away.
It's
Find
really
a
easy.
job that you can do. But for crying out loud, getting yourself into a position where you distribute pills for a living, if you don't want to actually distribute all the pills, if you want to actually have, I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine the gall of these people to say, no, I'm going to overrule your doctor's prescription. I'm going to overrule it because I can.
I'm waiting for
some
some pharmacist to get sued for malpractice for providing medical advice by telling someone they shouldn't take the drug. Yeah. How's that sound?
Or they can't.
Yeah,
they can't.
And
they're
basically preventing them.
A lot of times there's only one pharmacist on duty.
Yeah. Or
what if that one pharmacist on duty says, no, you can't do it. You have to go to another Walgreens.
And if
you have to wait. You have to come back.
Yeah, and if
because somebody has a god that says no.
Yeah, and what if you're in a small town? You're in a small town. That's the only pharmacy and the only pharmacist. You got to go to a whole other city. Yeah, so
it's just the tip of the iceberg. This RFRA is something that I've been fighting since 1996 when I first started to become an activist. It's the worst. It is so bad because it elevates, I believe in a God that wants me to break the law above the law.
Well,
that's what it does.
You happen to throw out the T word, Trump, and one of my other questions I had on my list here is the Johnson Amendment.
Yeah.
While we're ranting here, talk to us about the Johnson Amendment. Okay. What is that? And is it really a problem?
The Johnson Amendment is a huge problem. It is a very underrated problem. And what I want to say to you, Phil, and what I want to say to your listeners, I'm going to explain this. I'm going to lay this out. I am not speaking hyperbolically. Okay? The Johnson Amendment is going to fundamentally – the removal of the Johnson Amendment is going to fundamentally change politics in this country. It's not small. It's not insignificant. And it is a huge problem. Here's why. The IRS changes – the IRS there are two kinds of 501c3 organizations as far as the IRS is concerned, as far as this discussion is concerned. There's 501c3 religious – 501c3 non-religious. 501c3 non-religious organizations are organizations like American Atheists and the United Way and the Red Cross and your soup kitchen down the street. We are non-religious organizations. If you donate to us, you get a tax deduction. And every year, American Atheists files our forms. We file our 990s.
The 990.
We file our 990.
You have it on the website. Easy for anyone to find. I love that.
Yeah, of course we do, because we're financially transparent. In fact, we go so far, American Atheists, to have our financials audited voluntarily every year by an independent accounting firm so that everybody knows not only is it 990, but everybody knows exactly how it's being spent. But that's beside the point. The 990s say how much money we make, how much money we spend, and how we spend it. Okay? It's a one-sheet form. Every 501c3 non-religious nonprofit organization files this form. And the other thing is that if we get a deduction, a donation of $10,000 or more, we have to report that to the IRS as well. And that way, we cannot actually promise anonymity for anybody who's donating $10,000 or more. And by the way, please donate $10,000 or more to American Atheists. We need it.
And that $10,000 rule is to prevent money laundering, by the way, listeners, because that's going to be important when you talk about the other side. 501c3s.
Okay, so the other side, these 501c3 religious organizations do not file those forms. Churches don't tell anyone how much money they make or how much they spend their money. In fact, there are IRS rules prohibiting auditing churches. There was one church that was audited, and they found financial problems, but the case was thrown out of court because the IRS auditor was too junior to perform an audit on a church. They have so many restrictions on putting audits on a church. You have to be a senior level official at the IRS to do it. So auditing churches is nearly impossible. But those are two different things. That's one thing that we need to talk about. The fact that churches don't file their forms, don't declare their income, don't declare how they're spending their money to anyone, and they don't declare major donors, so the money laundering. Okay? So that's the first thing. The Johnson Amendment, the one thing they can't do is politicize, is actually campaign in politics. And that's important because nonprofit organizations are supposed to be de facto extensions of the government. We're supposed to be providing a public service.
That's right.
And that's why we're nonprofit. Okay?
Yep.
That's one thing. The other thing that happened is Citizens United. Citizens United created super PACs. How did it create super PACs? It created super PACs by saying corporations are people and that money is freedom of speech. Money is speech. So now corporations can have political opinions and they can have religious views and they can spend all the money they want on political donations. So that's what created super PACs a few years ago. Here's the problem. If the Johnson Amendment is repealed, you're going to have churches who now suddenly have the ability to campaign like super PACs. So if you've got $10 million that you want to donate to the Donald Trump campaign, you can donate it to a super PAC, or you can donate it to a church. The church will say, thank you for the money. We're going to put it all into Donald Trump. You get a tax deduction for donating it to the church. You don't get one for donating it to a super PAC. You get a tax deduction for donating it to the church. The church takes the money. They spend some portion of the money on Trump and keep the rest. And you will never know how much they do. You will never know because they don't file their forms. So it's really important for people to understand what's happening here. Super PACs are, and I'm not speaking hyperbolically here, super PACs are going to go out of business because churches will become the new super PACs because they do exactly the same thing as super PACs except they're tax deductible and anonymous. You could donate $10 million to a church and nobody will know. They will keep a portion of it. Nobody will know. They will spend a portion of it as they see fit. Nobody will know. All the politicians, all their money is now going to come in through churches.
Yeah.
Where is their impetus to protect the separation of church and state?
Yeah, it opens
gone.
up Pandora's box, if I can use that analogy. It
is. This is a disaster. This is something that people do not understand the implications. People do not understand what's happening. Most religious groups oppose this because the temptation will be huge to scam the people. To say, I mean, if you've got your small church, let's take your small church. Let's just take your stereotypical nice church on the corner. They want to do good things. You've got a pastor there. He's trying to do good things, but they're struggling. They don't have money. They don't have all this stuff. And he's barely making ends meet as a pastor. And then somebody comes up to them and says, hey, I want to donate $1 million to the Trump campaign. And they say, well, I'll take the $1 million and I'll donate I'll spend $500,000 on Trump ads. And use $500,000 and put it, I don't know, in the pastor's pocket.
Right.
And there will be no oversight, no forms filed. The pastor will tell you, yes, we spent that money on Trump. You saw the ads for Trump. You didn't know how much they spent. You'll never find out. The temptation to make money off this as a scam will be off the charts. Religion will become an extension of the political system. Religion will die because it'll all become a pawn of politics. It has to. This is not hyperbole. This is basic economics. This will happen. if we repeal the Johnson Amendment.
Many years ago, a lot of churches understood that, by them staying out of politics, it means politics also stays out of religion.
Yeah.
And not only this, but you open up the door for any country, not just China and Russia, Saudi Arabia, any country can find a church, donate endless amounts of money, not trackable, not verifiable, not knowable. The people in charge can pay themselves any amount of money they want and promote any campaign anywhere, dog catcher in some county, or flip the votes. And there's no way to track it, monitor it, see it. It's all invisible. It's magic.
It's all invisible. It's all dark money. It's all corrupt. The pastors will get rich. The super PACs will probably go out of business because they will be replaced by churches because the churches are tax deductible. And the impetus to support the separation of religion and government from any politician on either side will evaporate because they're all going to get money from religions. And if you want to talk Muslims, your stereotypical Saudi Arabian or just let's say Islamist forces will have a ton of money to donate to mosques who will turn it around and put it into people who favor their agendas as well. This is something that's going to make religion an extension of politics. It is very, very dangerous. We are watching it like a hawk. Trump came out with an executive order that said, well, let's not push it too hard. That's not going to do anything. What is going to do something is when they repeal it. We are expecting them to repeal it via a rider on a bill in Congress. We don't know when it's going to happen. Our the Twitter is American Atheist. My Twitter handle is at Mr. Atheist Pants. Follow us on atheists.org, and please, 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 folks, sign up. Join American Atheists and donate to our legal fund. We have a donor match going on right now. If you go to atheists.org/monthly, you can donate to American Atheists, and all of your monthly donations for the first year are going to be matched, so doubled. So if you donate $20 a month, we get $40 a month. Please help us. And yes, I know. People say, oh, you're asking for money. It's just like religion. Well, guess what?
That's right.
We're actually a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We run on donations. And like Phil said, we put our numbers on the web so that everybody knows how transparent we are. This company, the American Atheist, has no debt. We have a building with no mortgage. We do not have any debt at all. We run a very lean organization. We are changing this country with 6 employees. This is the best place for you to put your donation dollar if you want to get bang for the buck. Please join American Atheists at atheist.org, and please come to our national convention where you can have a lot of freaking fun.
Now, I know you're running late on time, so forgive me for going on with this. How big is that match that you have available? How many people can donate? What's the limit?
It's a $50,000 match, $50,000 over the course of a year, and we're 3/4 of the way there now. So if you can donate, I mean, a lot. Some people are donating, and this is a fantastic idea. If you donate $100 a month for a year, that gets you life membership.
Right.
So you get life membership, and we get $2,400.
Well, here's what I want to do.
Yeah.
It's my summer fundraising drive for the secular movement, and if you can have somebody on your staff set up a special link that I can share and promote, what I'm going to do is encourage my listeners, and I'm doing this right now. Listeners, I'm going to give you this link after we're done with David, hopefully later in this segment or the next show. And the first $3,000 that my listeners use this special link to commit to, I personally am going to match that. So your $3,000 will turn into $6,000, and that $6,000 could turn into $12,000.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's a really, really generous thing, Phil. Thank you so much.
It's just something that someone the other day asked me if I could volunteer for something. I said, I really don't have time, but I'm very, dare I say, blessed. I have money, and I give 10% of my gross company's revenue to groups like American Atheists. And so, listeners, please, we're going to get the link to you. David's going to get this done, I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
You guys donate up to $3,000 from listeners for my show, or share it with your friends. I don't give a shit where the money fucking comes from. legally, of course. But once $3,000 goes through this link, I match the $3,000. David's got another match. It turns your $3,000 turns into $12,000.
Wow.
So how's that sound?
That's awesome.
Let's make some money because
that's awesome, Phil. Thank you so much for support, and you've done so much supporting for this organization and for this movement. I really appreciate it. I really thank you so much, Phil. You do a lot for us, and it makes a difference. This is the kind of stuff that keeps our lights on and keeps our activists employed and keeps our activism happening. And that's a huge thing.
Well,
Thank you so much.
And I know you're out of time, but I just want to mention to the listeners, there's so much more on the website. Of course, you can go sign up for the convention and the VIP dinner and the extra dinners. And by the way, the main hotel is full, so suck it. You're going to have to stay. But the parking lot's huge, so stay at another hotel and just drive over.
And all the overflow hotels have free shuttles.
Oh,
so you won't have to park. Everybody's got free shuttles. You're going to be able to come and go as you please.
Excellent. But check out the website. There's information about billboards we didn't have time for, scholarships that are there.
Yeah.
Sign up for action alerts so you can know what's going on and how you can help. Because yes, American Atheists is getting to be a big organization that can do real powerful things. But you as an individual human can make a difference. So please sign up for the action alerts. Anything else that we've missed?
No, I think we're good, man. I want to thank you for having me on the show. And I think, you and I, is there anything else we missed? Yeah, if we had another 3 hours, we could talk a lot more. But I think now's a good place to stop. I really do appreciate you letting me do this. And your donor match is very generous. Thank you so much. I'm going to get you a link right away so that we can track it. And thank you to your listeners for supporting American Atheists. And please come to the American Atheist National Convention August 19th through 21st, starring a total eclipse of the sun and a whole bunch of awesome people and a whole bunch of laughs and smiles.
Well, great.
I look forward to seeing you there.
If I don't see you personally before then, I, of course, will see you there, and we're going to have a great time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Phil. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
This survey of American beliefs showed that Americans, at a rate of between 48 and 51%, don't believe in evolution, which is like half. And on top of that 50-odd%, a further 38 to 40% of Americans believe that biological evolution has occurred, but believe that it was initiated by and has since been kind of administered by God. Leaving a very small percentage of Americans who are right. It's not my theory. But I've done material about evolution before, and in Australia and in Britain it barely raises an eyebrow. It's just worth a chuckle. But in America it's quite contentious to do comedy about evolution, It gets a gasp. It's the equivalent of doing material about fisting anywhere else, It's quite confronting for them. I've been heckled by a man in the front row in New York loudly defending his disbelief in evolution. I've been pulled aside in foyers by people defending their disbelief in evolution in the same terms, interestingly enough. It's the same defense that the intelligent design movement uses in the high courts of American states to try and sneak its pseudoscience into American high schools. And that defense is always, but evolution is only a theory. Which is true. I mean, it is a theory, and it's good that they say that. I think it gives you hope, doesn't it? That maybe they feel the same way about the theory of gravity. And they might just float the fuck away.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
Well, once again, we're at that time where we're going to wrap up the show, so we've only got a couple of things to follow up on. It looks like the feed works for everybody again. The only iTunes comment I have is Split Darfur revised their 1-star rating to 5-star rating because the show is back. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. I greatly appreciate it. Of course, if you like the show and you feel you're getting some value to it, share that with the world. Go to iTunes, go to Stitcher, or if there's any other platforms that have reviews, give the show a rating. Of course, if you have a concern or a problem, or if I got something wrong, just let me know. We want you to go there to give 5-star ratings, and more people will have the opportunity to see the show. Of course, you can also share the show with your friend. You can like the show page on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter at Skeptic Money. You can send me an email if you've got questions. I'm now getting to the point where I can't necessarily respond at length to every email, but I'll try. I'll try really hard to. But I've got paying customers that I have to respond to first. So forgive me if I don't get to you right away. I won't take offense if after a week or so passes, you send me another email saying you didn't answer me. Don't be a douche about it, but, remind me. It's okay. I won't take offense. So iTunes, thank you for that adjustment. It looks like all the other players are working, so that's great. On Stitcher, the show is back up at 47. I think at one point we were above 40, but there's ups and downs. At number 47 in spirituality and religion. I love it. So that is fantastic. Other little fun news, the fundraiser that we were doing for Black non-believers, a $3,000 fundraiser, that goal has been met. Of course, you can still give them more money, but they were able in about 2.5 weeks to raise $3,000, and I and my business, Polaris Financial Planning, matched that money. So Black non-believers were able to raise $6,000 to continue to do their mission, I guess, their field work, and being a safe place for people to come out as being a non-believer while Black. Of course, anyone can go to their meetings, and I'm still thinking about going on their cruise because that sounds like a lot of fun, but we'll have to check my schedule. Of course, this week we had David Silverman on, and I'm doing another match. And again, it's $3,000. And we talked about during the interview, they have someone that has real money, not like me, who is a poser that has a little bit of money, but someone who's matching up to $50,000. But the beautiful thing is that as listeners to the show, and you can go donate, you can share the link, you can share this show where I'm going to discuss the link, whatever, I don't care how the money gets there. You just got to find a way, whether it's you or your friends. You can donate $5. You can donate $3,000, whatever. But up to $3,000 that's donated through the specific link. And the link is atheists, with an S, atheists.org/Phil. You go there, you're going to get a fundraising page. It's got a little bar that's going across the bottom. And as of right now, it's $0. $0 have been raised. Once it gets to $3,000, or I don't know, let's say a month from now, let's see, it's almost the beginning of July. At the beginning of August, we're going to call it off. If you guys can raise somehow $3,000, I am going to match that. The $3,000 will turn into $6,000. And that $6,000 can be doubled again by another donor that committed to American Atheists, and I'm afraid I don't have their name. They may be anonymous. That'll turn that $6,000 into $12,000. So whatever amount you can give will be increased by a factor of 4. So if you've ever thought about donating, or if you want a discount on their convention, become a life member. That's $1,200. And they also have different life member tiers. And if you want to contribute all $3,000, I'd be delighted if someone who listens to the show goes to atheists.org/Phil and donates $3,000, and bam, I'm out $3,000 right off the bat. Not a problem. We can raise more than 3. I'm only going to double 3. I'm only going to add 3 to the 3. But if this raises 5, I'll add my 3, which would be 8. That could still turn into 16. It's an absolutely amazing opportunity for you to put your money where your mouth is, I guess. I'll call it that. And it's something I think we need to do. We need to stand up to religious oppression, quite honestly, where they think their freedom of speech is to oppress us. So donate some money right now, this week, and maybe not even next week, but I'll bring it up next week if we haven't made the number yet. Go to atheists.org/Phil and donate some money. Please feel free to share the show. You can repost the show. Anything that you can do to help me is appreciated. Anything you can do to help raise money for American atheists is appreciated. So we're going to wrap up the show, and I will be at Gateway to Reason in August, and I will be right at the end of July, and I will be at the American Atheist Convention and several more later this year. So I hope to see you somewhere. If you do see me, please feel free to come up and say hello. Until then, ciao.